In 2025, budget gaming is more alive than ever, but finding the right GPU isn't as easy as it used to be. On one hand, you've got the RX 580, a legend from the past, still floating around the used market for dirt cheap. On the other, there's the RX 6600, a much newer card that promises better performance, power efficiency, and longer support. So, what's the best budget GPU right now? Should you save money and grab the RX 580, or is the RX 6600 worth the extra cash? Let's break it down with real-world benchmarks, pricing, power consumption, and everything else you need to know to make the smartest choice for your next build or upgrade. Let's start with the basics. The RX 580 was released back in 2017, based on AMD's Polaris architecture. It's built on a 14-nanometer process, comes with 8 GB of GDDR5 memory, and has a power draw around 185 watts. Back in its day, this was the king of budget 1080p gaming. Fast forward to the RX 6600, launched in 2021 and built on AMD's much newer RDNA2 architecture. It also comes with 8 GB of VRAM, but this time it's faster GDDR6 memory. It's built on a 7-nanometer process, supports PCIe 4.0, and uses significantly less power, just around 130 watts. In terms of design, the RX 6600 is more compact and efficient, while the RX 580 is bulkier and requires more cooling and often a beefier power supply. So right out of the gate, the RX 6600 brings newer tech, better efficiency, and more modern standards. But the RX 580 still holds its ground for what it is, especially when price is a major factor. Now let's get to what really matters: gaming performance. Let's find out how these two stack up at 1080p with medium to high settings. In Cyberpunk 2077, the RX 580 manages around 30 to 35 FPS on low settings, while the RX 6600 hits 55 to 60 FPS comfortably on medium. In Fortnite, the RX 580 holds 70 to 90 FPS on medium settings, but the RX 6600 pushes over 150 FPS without breaking a sweat. In Apex Legends, we're looking at around 60 FPS on the RX 580 versus 100 plus on the RX 6600. Games like Valorant or CSGO don't stress either GPU much, but even there, the RX 6600 delivers more consistent 144 plus FPS for high refresh rate monitors. And in heavier titles like Elden Ring or Hogwarts Legacy, the RX 580 starts to struggle, often dipping into the 30s, while the RX 6600 keeps things smooth in the 50 to 60 FPS range on medium settings. Overall, the RX 6600 delivers anywhere from 30 to 60% better performance depending on the game, and it does it with better power efficiency and less heat. Next up, power efficiency and thermals. And this is where the RX 6600 really starts to pull away. The RX 580 has a rated TDP of around 185 watts, but in real-world usage it often pulls even more under full load. You'll need at least a 500 to 550 watt power supply, and it generates a fair bit of heat, especially in smaller cases. In contrast, the RX 6600 is rated at just 132 watts, and many models stay well below that in typical gaming sessions. That means lower power bills, less heat, and quieter cooling overall. So, if efficiency matters, and especially if you're working with a smaller or older power supply, the RX 6600 is the clear winner here. Now let's talk about driver support and features, the stuff that doesn't always show up in benchmarks but still matters long-term. The RX 580, despite being almost 8 years old, is still supported by AMD with occasional driver updates. But let's be real, it's nearing the end of its life cycle. You're not going to see major optimizations or new features added for it anymore. Meanwhile, the RX 6600, based on the RDNA2 architecture, is still part of AMD's active driver support lineup, and it benefits from newer technologies like FSR3, Radeon Super Resolution, and Smart Access Memory when paired with a Ryzen CPU. It also supports AV1 decoding. And let's not forget PCIe 4.0 support. So in terms of future-proofing, software support, and modern features, the RX 6600 clearly takes the lead. Alright, let's talk about what really drives most budget GPU decisions: price. As of 2025, the RX 580 is widely available on the used market, usually between $50 and $70, depending on condition and seller. It's one of the cheapest 8GB cards you can get, but you're rolling the dice on age, warranty, and previous use. The RX 6600, on the other hand, has dropped in price significantly since launch. On the used market, you can often find it for around $130 to $160, and sometimes even lower during sales or bundle deals. So yes, the RX 580 is definitely cheaper, in some cases less than half the price. But with that lower price comes lower performance, higher power usage, and limited future support. So which one should you buy? If you're building an ultra-budget gaming PC only playing esports titles or upgrading an old system with limited power capacity, the RX 580 still has a place. But if you can stretch your budget even a little further, the RX 6600 is absolutely worth the upgrade. So for most gamers, especially those looking for a smooth 1080p experience today and some headroom for tomorrow, the RX 6600 is the best budget GPU to buy right now.